that he was about 6 feet tall, that he was completely scourged all over his body, he was crucified.
What if one of the most powerful Christian films ever made wasn't just a film? The Passion of the Christ shocked the world. It broke records, it broke expectations, and for many, it broke something open inside them. But what most people don't know is that behind the cameras, something strange was happening. Unexplained events, intense emotions, and moments that left even the crew shaken. This wasn't just a production. It felt like something spiritual, something real. And at the center of it all was Mel Gibson. Not the actor, not the director, but a man battling darkness and chasing redemption. Before the first scene was filmed, before a single drop of fake blood hit the ground, there was a story that demanded to be told, and a price that would be paid to tell it. This is the story behind the Passion of the Christ. What really happened, why it mattered, and why, to this day, no one can fully explain it. At the height of his fame, Mel Gibson had it all. Box office success, global recognition, the power to choose any role he wanted. To the world, he was untouchable. But behind the scenes, he was breaking. Addiction, depression, a constant feeling that something was missing. He had reached the top, but the top felt empty. And then, in a moment he didn't plan, something shifted. He dropped to his knees, and for the first time in a long time, he prayed. Not with rehearsed words, but with desperation. That prayer turned into something more. He began to open the Bible again, reading the Gospels, meditating on the suffering of Christ. And one idea took hold. He had to tell the story of Jesus' final hours. Not as a symbol, not as a soft Hollywood version, but raw, real, unfiltered. He wasn't looking for a blockbuster. He was chasing conviction. And whether it made money or destroyed his career, he didn't care. Mel once said, "My sins were the first to nail him to the cross." That's why he made this film. Not to entertain, but to repent and to tell the truth. The idea wouldn't let him go. Mel Gibson wasn't planning to make this film, but once the vision took hold, it consumed him. He started researching, not for a script, but for truth. He read the Gospels over and over. He studied the stations of the cross. He dove into historical records and even the visions of old mystics. He didn't want opinions. He wanted accuracy. If Jesus spoke, it would be in Aramaic. If Romans barked orders, it would be in Latin. There would be no English, no shortcuts, no soft edges. This was not about comfort. It was about conviction. But when Mel took this idea to Hollywood, every door closed. Executives heard the pitch, a brutally realistic crucifixion story, spoken in dead languages, with no major stars. They passed, every single one. They told him no one would watch it. It was too violent, too religious, too risky. But Mel didn't change course, because for him, this wasn't a movie pitch, it was obedience. And if that meant doing it alone, so be it. He was all in. Mel Gibson wasn't just making a movie. He was building a world, one where nothing could feel fake. Every detail had to match the history. Every word, every costume, every location had to feel like it belonged to the time of Christ. He insisted on filming in ancient languages, Aramaic, Latin, Hebrew. No modern speech, no English filler. Even if it risked losing the audience, it had to be real. He chose to show the crucifixion as it was, bloody, violent, heart-wrenching. Not for shock value, but because that's what it really cost. He scouted real locations, not sound stages. He found rugged terrain in Italy, in a city carved out of rock. It looked like Jerusalem. It felt ancient. And when it came to casting, he didn't want celebrities. He didn't want familiar faces. He wanted people who would disappear into their roles. so that all the audience would see was Christ. Every decision went against the rules. But Mel didn't want to follow the rules. He wanted people to feel something. He wanted them to see Jesus, really see him. And that meant showing the cross as it truly was. Not clean, not polished, but real. When Mel Gibson finally had the vision in place, he did what most filmmakers would do. He took it to the studios. But Hollywood wasn't interested. A movie about Jesus, in dead languages, with no stars and brutal violence. They listened, and then politely passed. Too risky, too controversial, too religious. They told him no one would watch it. They told him it would fail. But Mel wasn't surprised. He knew that telling the truth about Jesus, without watering it down, wasn't going to be popular. And he faced a choice: change the vision or walk alone. He chose the second. No compromises, no studio money. He funded the project himself, $30 million of his own money, and then another $15 million just to promote it. No safety net, no backup plan. If it failed, it would take him down with it. But this wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't about reputation. It was about obedience. And Mel knew. When you're called to do something that honors Christ, the world may turn its back on you. But that doesn't mean you stop. Mel Gibson knew this role couldn't go to just anyone. He wasn't looking for a star. He was looking for someone who believed, someone who understood the weight of the story. That's when he found Jim Caviezel, a committed Catholic, a serious actor, and a man who wasn't afraid of the cost. Jim didn't hesitate when offered the role. He knew what it meant. He knew it would change his life, and not in the way most actors hope for. In fact, after offering him the part, Mel called him back. He said, "If you do this, you may never work in this town again." Jim's response was simple. We all have to carry our cross. He wasn't in it for fame. He wasn't trying to impress the industry. He was ready to give his all, physically, emotionally, spiritually, because this wasn't just a part. It was a calling. And from that moment on, Jim Caviezel would become the face of Christ for millions. Not through charisma, but through conviction. Hollywood could have faked it. Green screens, sound stages, digital cities. But Mel Gibson wanted no part of that. If this was going to be the story of Jesus, it had to feel like first-century Jerusalem. So they traveled to Matera, Italy, an ancient city carved into stone. It looked untouched by time. It looked real. And that's exactly what Mel wanted. The crucifixion site wasn't built in a studio. It was constructed on a hill, windy, cold, and brutal. Wooden crosses, dirt paths, nothing plastic, nothing polished. The actors didn't just perform. They endured freezing temperatures, unpredictable storms, days spent in silence, nights filled with prayer. The cast and crew quickly realized this wasn't an ordinary film. It felt different. It felt sacred. There were moments of quiet reverence on set. Moments when people broke down crying for reasons they couldn't explain. Moments when even Mel had to step away. Sometimes to pray. Sometimes to weep. And through it all, the film pressed forward. Not powered by comfort, but by conviction.